Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Between Bounds. The NBA Finals are set for the umpteenth year in a row. Well, just the fourth. But the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors are going to face off once again on basketball's biggest stage. So does LeBron have a chance? Or is Steph Curry and company heading for an easy repeat all over again? Joining us now is our friend James Yoder, founder and CEO of Chat Sports. James, great to see you as always. So is this good news or bad news that we keep getting the same NBA Finals year after year after year after year?
Yeah, I saw you snoozing before the break. I kind of feel differently. You know, it's a big time matchup. You've got the two biggest names in basketball: the Warriors, a super team. LeBron being the former super team, but now really just being a one-man show. I don't think it's going to be close. I'm not sure really there would have been any series that would have been close against the Warriors had they come out of the West. Now, I actually think the more intriguing series would have been the Rockets versus the Cavs, because people would have been willing to tune in more to see if LeBron can win another one. But as such, I do think you've got the two biggest draws in the sport. And with that, I think the NBA's got to be happy with the likely ratings they'll get versus potentially a Celtics-Rockets series that would have fared much less than this one will.
Right, and so the Warriors beat the Rockets, of course, Game 7. Now they're in the finals, but in the last 3 weeks, has it shown that the team might not be as invincible as we once thought, since they went all the way to Game 7?
Well, if you watch as much Warriors basketball as I do, I think the one interesting part about this year versus past seasons is they really just took the pedal off the metal. They coasted all regular season, and I think they believe they could just turn it on in the playoffs like they have in the past. And it wasn't that easy for them this year. They came up against a Rockets team that was built to beat them, that kind of played a similar offense as the Warriors. And had Chris Paul not gotten hurt at the end of Game 5, I think there's a better than 50% chance they would have lost in this series. So I'm guessing the Game 7 put a little bit of scare into what the Warriors are thinking about going into this NBA Finals. But they're certainly beatable in the playoffs, but I think the team that could have beat them was the Rockets. I think now that they've got that scare, and with how limited the Cavs are, with Kevin Love having concussion issues, no more Kyrie. He's, of course, with the Celtics and hurt. It's really a one-man LeBron show with four guys most NBA fans couldn't even name in the lineup for the Cavs at any given moment.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, James. I think this is like LeBron James' like 8th or 9th straight NBA Finals, at 8th in a row, which is like beyond bananas to think about that, like how amazing that is. But I mean, they got creamed by Golden State at last year's NBA Finals. LeBron and co are 1 year older. We already saw them kind of struggle through most of the playoffs anyway. So is this going to essentially be just LeBron James and the wheels falling off and there's just a bunch of scrubs going against the Golden State Warriors?
Look, I don't know if anyone on the planet has watched more Cavs-Warriors games than myself. I'm from Cleveland, live in the Bay Area, so I have gotten both sides of this rivalry. And I will say that this is the worst of the Cavs teams that they've had. And it's likely the best Warriors team. I think you could argue last year's might have been a better team, but this one, they've been together two years. So this is the biggest mismatch of the 4 years. But we've seen LeBron continue to be Superman, continue to defy all odds. You mentioned the 8 straight finals, 9 overall for him. The thing today to do on the internet is to name things that didn't exist or show pictures of people. The last time LeBron wasn't in the finals, which was 2010, his last year in Cleveland, the first go around, and they've shown players that, like, this is what this player looked like. And of course, he's like 11 years old at the time, who's now in the NBA or something like that. So I think this one should be a pretty easy victory for the Warriors, but I'm not going to count out LeBron. He's proved us wrong, many times in the past, that he can be maybe the only guy in sports to will his team to a title.
All right, James, so let's talk a little bit viewership. The game 7 with Cavs Celtics was the second highest rated NBA game ever. So do you think these numbers are going to continue into the playoffs, or do you think they're going to be asleep like Baker? Or, like all these people that are saying we've already seen this show so many times?
Yeah, the NBA is running into a little bit of that Cavs fatigue. And would the game 1 have had the Celtics one been a little higher, maybe the Celtics Warriors, I think. But over the course of 4, 5, 6 games, I think this is the best the NBA could hope for. But I think it'll be the worst of the last 4 years by a big margin, because most people are just looking at it saying, the Warriors are just going to crush the Cavs. So I think there'll be some intriguing game 1 that'll set the tone for where the ratings are, and they'll certainly be high, but I think they'll drop substantially the more the games go down, and then it'll rise back up when either team has a chance to clinch, which will probably be either Game 4 or Game 5 for the Warriors.
And James, of course, there's going to be nonstop chat about where LeBron James will be playing after this particular NBA Finals. Do you feel like that is going to be a huge distraction for him? Let's just say this is his last run in Cleveland. Do you think that's just going to be a big distraction for him and for his team?
I think it's been a distraction for this team for a year now, which is one of the, I think, the knocks you could have LeBron in his entire career is he's given up multiple seasons, the 2010, the 14, the 18 season. Every year he's got this free agency. It looms over the franchise for over a year. They're unable to sign any players that offseason prior that can make an impact. And you see LeBron kind of flame out in 2010. He didn't even make it to the finals. 14, they got crushed by the Spurs. And now this year, they're limping in with a band of misfit kids into the finals. He's having to will them. So I actually believe that LeBron, he either needed to make it, known he was leaving or committed to the Cavs long term this year, because if not, you got Kyrie didn't want to be the guy holding the bag at the Cavs once LeBron goes. No one else big would sign with them this offseason. So it has been a distraction. I think it's going to continue to be a distraction because should they get down 2-0 or 3-0, I think that the rest of the team is just going to kind of pack it in, start calling their agents. Where am I going to play next year? Tyronn Lue might be looking for a job if LeBron leaves. So it's been a distraction. And I think LeBron is kind of doing it to himself when it comes to not being able to be at his peak when going into these titles, because no one wants to commit to the Cavs if he's not going to commit to the Cavs.
And J.R. Smith will be looking for a shirt.
That's for sure.
And so, James, speaking of moving around, a lot of people say that when Kevin Durant made his move to the Warriors, it threw off the whole balance of the entire league. So, I mean, is that valid? You also agree?
Well, you've created the greatest dynasty in sports. You already had maybe the best team in the NBA. Now, they lost in 2016. You had the second or best, third best player. Think about back in the 90s when Michael Jordan was making his run. Imagine you added Shaq to that team, how dominant they would have been. That's basically what the Warriors did. So it's kind of become unfun. I don't think this NBA regular season was very fun for me as a fan, because I knew we'd get to this, whether it be the Warriors, likely the Cavs, or maybe somebody else, but you knew the Warriors were going to be there. So I think it's gotten a little unfun. And if you think about next season and talk about LeBron and free agency, maybe the only way it gets fun again next year to think somebody else but the Warriors might win is if LeBron goes to the 76ers and you've got, 3 superstars under 25 plus LeBron, on that one team. If not, can anyone tell me LeBron's not the Warriors next year?
So many crazy storylines. James Yoder, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Great stuff as always. CEO and founder over at Chat Sports.